some information that might help you with your transitional wardrobe. Shh! Don't tell anyone. It's a top secret.
If there's something wrong with your clothes, there's nothing wrong with your body, there's something wrong with your clothes. I'm Wardrobe Warrior and I'm going to help you. Now, the first information I'm going to give you is about what you're going to wear in between seasons. It's too hot. Can't wear a coat. It's too cold. I can't wear my fancy jackets and my fancy cardigans. So what do I wear? I wear a Mach. Now, not all Machs are waterproof. Most Machs are water resistant. What is the difference between waterproof and water resistant? I'm going to tell you in easy way to remember. Anything that is waterproof means water cannot penetrate it. Waterproof is like your skin. Water doesn't get through your skin. It is absorbed by your skin, but it doesn't go in. Like, you don't put your hand in the shower and then you come out and your hand is all floppy because there's water in it, because your skin is water resistant. It's waterproof. So that is waterproof. Most fabrics are water resistant, which means water will go on, it will bead off, but eventually it will go through and it will soak. The only way you can get a waterproof Mach is if it is coated with waxy oil resin. Now, waxy oil resins will make things very crispy and very stiff. So technically, leather, you could say leather is waterproof because it's it takes a long time for water to get through it, but eventually it will go through it. So leather isn't waterproof, it is highly water resistant. Wool also has an element of being water resistant because wool has got hairs in it that's coated with an oil called lanolin. So you see sheep in the rain, they're like, nah, it's raining, I'm gonna sit down there. They go on the floor, rain hits them, they get up and they go, they're a bit drippy wet, but the water is beading off, and that's because of the natural oil lanolin. That is an oil, makes it very water resistant. So that is the difference between water resistant and waterproof. Most coats and most fabrics you're going to buy are going to be water resistant, unless you're going to a fisherman's shop because you're a pirate and you're on the high sea and you need an oilskin. You're not going to need a waterproof coat as a rule living in town. So all of your coats are going to be water resistant. Hello! It is a different day. It is a different Mach. And I'm going to tell you the difference between a Mach and a trench coat. Each part of a trench coat had a purpose, and the main reason trench coats were made, they were made for soldiers in the war, because they were in the trenches. It was cold, it was miserable, and it was wet. So they needed a water resistant coverall. So basically what Burberry did was they took the officers' coverall and made their trench. So that's theirs one is a bit fancier, and they went immediately for the primo market with their thick wool and their satins and their silk lining. They went straight for that. Whereas Aquascutum continued to make their waterproofs for the common man and the soldier, people that actually needed a waterproof garment to actually get on and do their job and live their life. So And we're going to start, and I will insert a picture of a Burberry or a trench, a Burberry trench. I think it's the Burberry trench, because I've lost all the pictures of me wearing them, because as I said, I gave my Burberry to my mum because it didn't fit me as well as the Aquascutum, because the Aquascutum was a man's one, so it was more generous. So I will not keep going on about that anymore because you're probably bored. So we will start with, we'll go from top to bottom. So let's go. Burberry and Aquascutum were in a bit of a war between who invented the Mach, but they both invented water-resistant fabrics. Basically, they're different in different ways. Aquascutum made their gabardine. It's not called gabardine. I don't think they call it gabardine anymore. I think it's called something else. Aquascutum, which means water, aqua, scutum, shield, coated their fibres in the actual water-resistant polymer. So, and they created theirs in 1851. Yes, 1851. Patented in 1853. Burberry, however, went a different way. They actually waterproofed the fabric after it was woven, and they called it gabardine. So most people now say gabardine is interchangeable, meaning it's a water-resistant fibre, and we all know the difference between waterproof and water-resistant. Now, the other difference between a Mach, which this lovely navy blue one is the same as the red one, the same as the yellow one. I have it in green and black and burgundy as well, because I freaking love this bag because it's so swirly. A Mach has a trench coat has to have these features. 1. A trench coat will have 10 buttons. This is a trench style because it is double-breasted, but as you can see, I'm just going to do it the other one, it has more than 10 buttons. So it is a trench style Macintosh, so it's a Mach. 2, it will have epaulets. There's lovely fancy button down things on the front. Epaulets. 3, it will have the belt, a belt loop. Well, the belt can have D-rings on it. Well, it doesn't have to. Some of them do, don't. It's kind of not necessary anymore. But if they have D-rings, they tend to have been made before 1973. They kind of sort of phased those kind of things out. I'd say about 1973 to about 1979, they started phasing out having the D-rings on the belts. So that's one other thing that will definitely have, but they must have, for it to be a trench coat, it's got to have the same wrist belts. The next one is, if you're a purist, it should have the gun flap. It can have one, or it can have the double, because people were left or right-handed, and if you've seen Peter Sellers, his trench coat, which is by Aquascutum, fact fans, has a double trench, has a double gun flap. Columbo did not wear an Aquascutum, he did not wear a Burberry. Actually, Columbo's coat is actually made by a Spanish company which ceased trading in the UK about 1973, I think, according to my records. They probably still trade in Europe. They're a Spanish company and they're called Corte. Corte means means quality tailoring in Spanish. Hey, Duolingo, thank you. So, Corte. What happened was Peter Falk, this is a story that he tells everyone and it is documented. Peter Falk was told that he needed to get an overcoat. He thought he needed to get a rain Mac. So he went to a store near him and he saw this brown Mac by Cortifo and he thought, yes, I'm going to buy that. And if you look at Columbo's first episode, you see he's got the original Mac, which has got 5 buttons down the front. And I think what happened was, as the series progressed, is that his original one, which is completely shabby, is that they made copies, but the copies that they made were not exactly the same. They have 4 buttons instead of the original 5, and I think they did that maybe to make it look more comedic when he ran and chased me. Excuse me, sir, because his Mac in later seasons is so comically short, it became like it is his catchphrase to go, excuse me, I have a question, and he would run after the person you knew who did it. But Corte is where Columbo got his Mac from, and yes, Peter Sellers does have an Aquascutum. Yes, Humphrey Bogart's is an Aquascutum. Who doesn't have an Aquascutum Mac in the movies? I actually think it's most pre-70s movies were Aquascutum Macs, because you can tell because they were stiff. The Burberry ones were a bit more tailored and flancy to the body. They were a bit more fashiony. You can kind of tell if you look at Burberry's versus Aquascutums, you can tell one of them is a bit more fluid and a bit more like this, more for fashion and style. And that's Burberry's. I'm not knocking Burberry, because their Macs are lovely and they are worth the money, because the one I gave to my mum has lasted maybe 40 plus years. The same as my Aquascutum, they will live on. I will probably be in my grave and those 2 coats will still be going. So if you're wanting to invest your money in a Burberry or an Aquascutum trench coat, I would say do it. They're worth it. And then the next one, it will have the back flap as well. So that will also make it a trench coat. If it has all of those features, turning back around, it is a trench coat. There are extra features that will make it extra posh. You know, the ones that the officers wore, which are basically there would be a strap that would enable you to have your shoulder pop up and be secure. Another thing which my cream one has, which is, it's so close to being a trench coat, I'm going to call it a trench coat. It just doesn't have the back flap, but it has all the things that are vitally important, which are the 10 buttons, the wrist straps, and I've forgotten the 10 button, and a storm closing. The other thing that it needs to have is it needs to have a storm closing. This button's up here, which is great, but that's not a storm closing. The storm closing is an actual little hook here, which makes it even more secure and even more tight, which my Aquascutum coat that I wore earlier has. So my Aquascutum coat, you can say that one is a trench coat, but it just doesn't have the back flaps because it has the important things, which are the buttons, the gun flap, the wrist belts, and it doesn't have the next bit that you can have in extra really posh ones, apart as well as the back, the neck strap, is that you can have an extra inside pocket. The extra inside pocket was for things that you didn't want to put in your backpack, and I'll explain all the different functions of what each piece means, because trench coats were functional. They had a function. They weren't just for fashion. They had a purpose.